been co-founder of Apply the Redwoods campaign, and currently I'm executive director of Circle of the Earth Grassroots Women Taking Action for a Sustainable Future. So we have been a tribe. We have been an amazing group of people who have come together in this community around something that's really important to us. And Matthew has asked me to talk about my past work rather than about the Oak Grove. And some of the interesting, how do I start? I guess I'll just go back to some of the work I was doing in Mendocino County. I originally from the East Coast. Actually, my first ever participation in anything that I call civic or political was the anti-apartheid movement when I was at Rutgers University. And I have a very fond memory of, we would follow the university president. This is when we were trying to divest our university from investments in South Africa. And we were following our university president to his car into the parking lot. And one day we went to the board of governors meeting of the university, and instead of doing the usual dialogue, people got up on the tables and started dancing for apartheid. And it was a really interesting and lovely way of bringing a heart space into something that was very serious. And as you know, apartheid has fallen. And years later, I ended up having an incredible experience. I met one of the members of the African National Congress at the UN, who was now a member of his parliament, and he was a governmental representative to the United Nations. And here I was, a former student doing my little piece, didn't know whether it was going to make a difference. And we met, our paths met, and we had this amazing moment where he said to me, it was people all over the world did their part over time, and eventually something happened, and he was able to be freed from prison, and he was now part of a democratic government. So that goes to show you, you never know what your actions will lead to. And it may not be your specific action that will be the tipping point, but you are part of the organic whole that's shifting that forward. I had experiences with dealing with loggers on the front lines. I was living in Mendocino County, as I mentioned, and the timber wars were going on. And I actually had an introduction to the timber wars by accident. I was going to Humboldt State University as a student for a summer arts program, and I had no idea the timber wars were going on. And all I knew about California at that time was, from Rice-A-Roni commercials, the cable cars, and from my Paul Bunyan stories, lumberjacks. So I got up there, and I was flying over in a small plane over Arcata and was just looking on the ground and seeing all the devastation. And I said to somebody, "What is that?" And they said, "That's a clear cut." And I said, "Oh my God, it looked like a bomb went off." But make a long story short, I ran into loggers at a cafe, and I went up to them, naive, and I said, "I want to know what this logging stuff is, and here the timber wars are going on." And I come up and confront them with this, and they actually sat down with me and explained to me what logging was. They were second and third generation loggers, and I learned from them what Pacific Lumber was doing and Maxam to the logging community up in Humboldt County at the time. Right. In the, I'd say, 80s and 90s, logging had taken a corporate turn, profits over sustaining the resource. And the biggest, I guess, most famous story is Maxam and Charles Hurwitz. He was involved with the junk bond fiascos and savings and loan Texas savings and loan crisis, and he was taking over Pacific Lumber with junk, buying it with junk bonds. And in order to pay the interest on the junk bonds, started cutting the forest, and instead of a few shifts, 1 or 2 shifts a day, went round the clock logging, clear cutting, and devastating the resource. When the former company, Pacific Lumber, was known for sustaining their timber holdings and treated the community very well. Maxam and Charles Hurwitz actually were then raided the timber pension plans, the pension plans of the loggers. So not only were they devastating the resource, they weren't treating the community very well anymore. And that started the whole move toward devastation logging, as we call it, which is now happening around the world. But anyway, so the loggers, they pitted the loggers against the environmentalists. It was the environmentalists who were the ones that were the ones who were forcing the jobs to be shut down. At that time, the jobs for milling and some of the timber was being shipped to Mexico for cheaper labor. The forest was being cut at a rate that we've never seen before, and people in the local community started standing up and saying no to this. And then we started getting pegged as, well, the people before me, including me now, were being pegged as environmentalists, as those who are standing in the way of jobs and progress and profits. And in Mendocino County, we were having the same thing happen with Louisiana Pacific. And you might have heard of Judy Barry, who had been bombed. Check that out on the internet, because I don't have time to go into her story. She was on her way to... Yeah, okay, good. So anyway, so there was violence being directed toward environmentalists, and it was risky to go out there and take a stand for this. And one of the interesting experiences I had, I would go into the forest and do what's called recon work, and I would look at topographic maps with our watershed team, and we'd look at the California timber harvest plans the company filed with the state, and we'd go into the forest to make sure and assess that the company was doing what they said they were doing. We would find violations, and I would videotape them or photograph them or mark them on the map and come out of the forest and give them to our legal team or to the watershed groups, and they would then submit them to the forest agencies or Fish and Game, etc. And in one plan, it was I forget the name of the timber company. We had an injunction from a superior court order to stop the logging, and the company did not give the order to the employees, so we took it upon ourselves in the community to sleep at the gates the whole weekend and stop the logging. And we had some real angry loggers come up to us, and we couldn't leave, otherwise they would go in, and there was a lot of yelling going on, and here we are 2 hours at the gate, and no sleep, and the loggers angry, and we just started dialoguing, and what we did was just really keep centered and grounded, and not flip into this anger that kind of feels like you get into a different, you're not really grounded when you're angry, you're just like all over the place, the anger's flying all over the place. And by the end of 2 hours, it was a progression. You get tired of standing, you get angry, I guess he got tired of yelling, I'm not sure what, but we kept a real calmness, we kept saying what we were standing for, not what we were standing against. And it was really interesting because all of a sudden he comes from his truck, he went back to his truck, and he comes back with an Earth First journal. And we're like, wow, why does the logger have an Earth First journal? And then he started showing us something in there, and he says, I really don't believe in this logging, but I have to do it because I need to, earn a living. And they're not doing it the way And then he started coming out with his side of the story, and his anger was coming out at what was happening to the Earth and the timber company. Then he went back to his truck, and he brings out a wooden cross, and he was talking about his cross and what his faith meant to him, and about Jesus and the Earth and all that. And by the end of almost 3 hours, we ended up hugging each other. And this was just like a real amazing experience. And I think it was all because that we stayed grounded, we didn't attack, and we were willing to listen. And then there was another great experience I had in New York City. We were doing boycotts against the Gap. The Fisher family, who owns the Gap Empire, Old Navy, Banana Republic, they purchased 238,000 acres of forest land in Mendocino County. Louisiana Pacific decided to leave the county, and we thought, oh, great, we're going to have a new company. They're going to come in, and they're going to do the right thing. And Louisiana Pacific Company actually cut themselves out of business, and they left a let's say about 19 inches diameter inventory of trees with a little bit of old growth. So there was really not much merchantable timber left. So here comes the Gap family and purchases this really cut over impacted forest. And we thought they were going to at least possibly be good stewards. And we went to them as a community, and it was quite beautiful to see all these people, from my community who've done years of research and really wanted to do something different, and go to this family and ask them to give some money toward restoring the resource, to providing jobs for the unemployed loggers and fishermen. And the family said no. So make a long story short, you can see it in the Timber Gap video if you want to get a copy of it from the same place you got Headwaters Action Video Collective. We'll have that film and tell you the story of that. So we launched a nationwide campaign, and we ended up, Save the Redwoods, Boycott the Gap was what we called our campaign. And I was in New York City meeting with our New York City activists there, and we decided to do one of many actions. And one of them, we wanted to reach the working class, so we picked Brooklyn. And there was an Old Navy store on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. So we decided to create a press release that says Coho Salmon, which is indigenous to Mendocino County in our rivers. Coho Salmon swims to Old Navy on Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn. And we had someone made a coho puppet, brought it in a taxi cab. But when I got there was all these police barricades and this real tough sergeant, and made us get in these, felt like we were in pens behind this barricade. And then there was this other fellow from another movement, wanted to give out literature, and started to haggle with the police. And I said, get back in here in the pen. I said, number one, we don't have legal observers. Number two, there's only 3 of us here. If they take us away now, nobody's going to know what happened to us. So get in here and shut up, cool it, because this anger's not going to get us anywhere. So he got in the pen, and then the puppet came, and then I invited a musician friend of mine, Ray Corona, who does a lot of events, and we were in the pen, and we were singing, and then little by little we snuck out of the barricades, and we're all on the sidewalk, and police weren't saying anything. And I do have a picture of New York City police playing air guitar and singing. And at the end of our, because in New York City you have to make appointments for your activism and rallies, and we had to end by a certain time, and we did. And the sergeant comes marching up to us, and he says to me, he says, I want to be assigned to your next event. And I said, why? He was like kind of real tough, and he says, because I really like what you're doing, and I want to be part of it. So I've been through a lot of hellacious protests, the Battle of Seattle, the tear gassing, watching people getting beaten. I don't know how you could do that on a larger level, but even the Battle of Seattle, protesters going there and staying nonviolent really made a difference and changed things around the world. This is I have a lot of stories, and I could answer some questions later. And I think Running Wolf, who ran out, is up next. But yeah.
Yeah, I think this is Running Wolf at that point.
Right.
To be respectful of our time constraints, but just since we got another minute here, do you want to say one thing about what it's like being Oak Grove, what you've done there, what's like the tree sitter?
It's intense because anytime you walk in a grove, and if you're a tree sitter, or a former tree sitter, or ground support, you have this edge of feeling hunted, because when the police you almost feel like an animal, how an animal feels to be chased and moved and all that, and I think that's something we have to kind of pay attention to. It's like it's not just about us saving the trees because they're beautiful, because this is an ecosystem that not only provides life for us and gives us life without asking for anything in return. It provides habitat for a whole ecosystem for something we can't even see that's happening. So we're there also for the species who can't speak for themselves. Okay, thank you.
Talk about the Native American experience, perspective about the Oak Grove, and his experience as an activist. And also, I should mention that Running Wolf is a past and future mayoral candidate.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Zachary Running Wolf. I'm from the Kootenai tribe, Blackfeet Nation in Montana. There are 85,000 Native Americans here in the Bay Area, which is the second largest Native population, only to Oklahoma City. Also, that doesn't include the Hispanic people who are Native. So if you count them into the equation, you get a much larger. Half of African Americans have Native blood. So now you start to talk about between 2 and 3 million people in the Bay Area who have Native blood. So let's get that. I led the tree sit on December 2nd into the Oak Grove the morning of the big game. I say that we played our own big game, and we trumped the powers that be. On the first day that we took the trees, on the New York Post website and the LA Times, instead of listing the big game's score, they say protesters have taken the trees. So this has turned into a world issue. It's gone around the world. This is vital. This is larger than those 42 trees that we're up there trying to save. Many issues have come out of this tree sit, including the experience of being in a tree, which I myself have gained. In the Native culture, we are now considered the tree people up at the Oak Grove. We are considered a tribe. We are protectors of these, what we call in the Native community, standing people. These are living beings. And so Matthew does great work with nonviolence. But what is violent and nonviolence? We are violent every day, and we don't even know it. Who drives a car here? Yeah. Where do you think that oil comes from? There's serious violence going on right now in not just Iraq, but all over the world. Not just to people either, to the environment. We are nuclear bombing the Middle East. That's going to be around, depleted uranium is around for 100,000 years. It's blowing in the wind. This is very, very violent. As far as who lives in a house, yeah, very violent. Those are tree people cut down. That's a very violent action. Who eats meat? I do. Very violent. So what I'm getting to is basically we have 4% of our old growth left. 4. Just 4. So we are up there defending trees that should be landmarked. We landmark buildings here, dead trees, killed trees, murdered trees in the city of Berkeley that are 80 years, 100 years old, but we have 200-year-old living things that are helping us recycle our waste. And we're set to cut it down for a good football team. That's insanity. This university is completely insane. So we're up in these trees. We've been there for 109 days. I am so proud of everyone who's participated in this. The community has come together on different issues. We have 3 lawsuits, including the city of Berkeley, against this university. This university refuses to back down, even though it's on the fault line. We've had 5 earthquakes during this time. There's a crack in the southern part of the stadium. Unbelievable. It's a death trap. The structure, I'm in the construction business. There is, in 1925, when this was built, it's probably required rebar probably 6 feet wide. Now, if you go by the Bay Bridge or other overpasses, the grids are about this big. Concrete is a very rigid material, and during a violent earthquake, it will come down in pieces. Wood structures tend to sway. So basically, the university is full of it. They are basically putting not only the student athletes at risk, but they're putting 70,000 people who are going to occupy that stadium in danger. Whew, that's not it. It's a World War I war memorial veterans memorial. It has been landmarked by the federal government as a historical grove. And finally, and most importantly, it's a burial ground. It's a Native American burial ground. 1925, they found 3 bodies under there. Somebody brought us a piece of paper that worked for the university stating this. So now it's a federal issue because you're dealing with Native Americans. We do not have a relationship with Tom Bates. We do not have a relationship with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We have a relationship, although it's not a good one, with Mr. Bush and crew. So this thing is huge. And this university is not backing down. Why? You should come out on Wednesdays when Professor Chappella is out there taking us through these walks describing what's going on at this university. What's going on at this university? Do you know the nuclear bomb was invented here? We talk about free speech movement. They're pimping that. It is genetically altered foods, nanotechnology, computer science. Basically, this university is the enemy of Mother Earth, the way I look at it. It has I don't know if you know about power lines with the Illuminati. You should start looking into the Illuminati. This thing is huge. This is not just about this Oak Grove, because there's, what did I list, about 7 or 8 different reasons why they should be stopped. But they keep coming. British Petroleum, $500 million in genetically altered food. This is control of the world's energy source, corn ethanol. This is very, very serious, and they will not stop. Chappella pointed out this power line, which goes through NORAD to Washington, D.C., goes through the university, right through the prison industrial complex, which is called Alcatraz, and goes out to the east. Yeah. This is basically probably the biggest fight in North America, is right up at your Oak Grove. And it involves very serious things. I have now 2 felony counts against me. I'm going to be running for mayor. The reason why I have felony counts is then they can knock me out of even having a voice in the mayorship. Last election, I brought up some ugly, ugly things about this university. $300 million in perks to their top executives. Yeah, I said, well, if Berkeley's starving for money, why don't we just divide the $300 million in just perks alone to the 10 universities? That's $30 million for the city of Berkeley. They didn't like that. Yeah. See, I give up the mayor's salary because I'm a native leader, not a politician. I give to the community. I protect the children. That is something that's different. And we are at the turning point in the world's history. And I do have to apologize to your generation. My generation has left you a very, very dark time. Understand that. I've ridden this bike for 6 years. I don't understand what's going on in this world when we have traffic jams out there, we have a war over oil, and we have global warming. Yeah. I'm being accused of the Stop Driving campaign. I support whoever's doing that 200%. But we need this. I mean, it's really simple. Stop flying. Stop driving. Stop these people. It's really, really simple, but it's on you. A lot of people look, oh, there's nothing I can do. 90% of this battle is inward. 90% of it is inward. We have control. That's their big game. Is they're fooling you into thinking of this globalization. Act locally, they'll go globally. We need to get back to our roots. That's why we're making that stand up in the Oak Grove. We have blessed this community with education as far as like simple ecology. These trees, they're trying to say that 3 trees, they're going to replace 3 trees for every one that they take down. But little saplings don't recycle the air like 200-year-old Oak Grove trees. That equation doesn't work. So anyway, going to my culture, like how do you live with nature? That's what we're facing. And we're coming on the Mayan calendar, where Indians shall live again. This is the prophecy. My culture, this is the last battle. My culture teaches you that you only take what you need. For instance, if you need wood for your house or whatever, you go up on the tree and you cut the dead limb off. That helps the tree flourish. You look at the environment and see what is available for you to take. I'm a medicine person in the Native community, we only take the brown stuff off. You never take the green. The Creator has made that so that the medicine is most ripe at that time. It's living within nature. I come from the Blackfeet Nation. When we